Welcome back to Grassroots Media. Welcome back to this week's edition of the Baileyton Drug Company Eric Tilson Show, presented by Starnes Barber, where we cover everything on the Tundra with the North Greene Huskies football team. As always, I'm joined here with head coach Eric Tilson. Coach, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm all right.
It's been a great weekend.
It's been a great weekend.
The Huskies won on Friday night. College football started on Saturday, and you had Labor Day on Monday. Got a little bit of an extended break. Got to rest a little bit and sleep a little easier this weekend.
I don't know about the sleeping part, but definitely got to rest a little bit.
It was a better weekend in all, though, considering what happened on Friday night. We'll jump right into it. Big win over Castlewood on homecoming night. Stressful night for a coach. I know.
Yes, it was.
Got it out of the way.
But it's over.
Had no worries getting the victory, though. 42-6 over Castlewood. Take me through it and talk about how happy you were leaving the field on Friday night.
Well, I was pleased with our execution, and it's just good when you put three phases together. Starting off defensively, got a 3 and out. We just had a self-imposed penalty. I gave them a first down, and then we were kind of able to settle in, stop them again, and then get the ball back offensively. Then we just methodically took it down the field and scored. So that was good to see. And then defensively being able to come back out, get another 3 and out. And then again, offensively, march it down the field and score methodically. So that's kind of what you want to see. And then taking advantage of some opportunities in the special teams game. We forced a bad snap on a punt. And almost had a safety on it, but got the ball on the 1 yard line, took that in and scored. So it's good to see stuff like that. So that's what you want to see out of your team. And it kind of took a while I'm sure it was a quick first quarter, but it took a while to get the ball back because they just chewed clock. And I
read 8 minutes.
Yeah, so I think there was about 5 minutes left on the clock when we finally got the ball for the first time. But I was pleased with our offense. Just executed well. Just took what Darnell did a great job of just dishing the ball around, and then kind of utilizing all 5 skilled positions. Because I think there was, if I go back and look, there was the targets were spread out amongst a bunch of guys, so that's kind of what you want to see. And multiple guys carried the ball. Quarterback runs, we had 2 guys over 50 yards rushing, and then we had three guys score on the ground. Maybe 4. I think we had. I've got to go back and look, but we had multiple guys score on the ground, so that's good to see.
Whenever you get confused about how many people scored what and who scored, it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to forget that, and we'll talk about a lot of the stat stuffers throughout the night. One thing I wanted to talk about was I don't know which unit was more impressive. Was the offense more impressive or was the defense more impressive? Because the offense put together a performance of 348 total yards. The defense only allowed 127 yards, and 65 of those, I believe, was on one touch, or 60 of those was on one touchdown play that they had. You take that away, they allowed 67 yards the whole rest of the game. I don't know which one was more impressive. At the end of the night, both did a good enough job to get the win, but how pleased were you on both sides of the ball where you had a complete game?
Well, that's the whole thing, is having a complete game offensively, defensively, and special teams-wise. Is kind of what you want to see. I thought our defense has played extremely well for 2 weeks now, minus a big touchdown play. But on the touchdown play, like we're asking our DBs are very aggressive, which we want them to be. So we've got a bunch of picks this year, even so far within 2 games, and but within that, sometimes you undercut routes too much, and then they get you over the top, which we'll work on to get better at. But at the same time, you want your kids to be able to play aggressively, especially on defense, and then because if he undercuts it the right way, then all of a sudden we got an interception instead of a long touchdown. But that's kind of the style of play that we have defensively, and in turn it helps us, especially in the run game. And then teams try to throw it short, and then we got to stay on top of routes over the top, which we're getting a lot better at. And we got a lot of length back there, so we have the ability to do so. So I was definitely pleased defensively, but offensively we didn't have very many mistakes. We got a couple things to shore up on up front with protection, but that was more a missed assignment part, not necessarily technique. So we just had a guy go the wrong way on protection. which just left a gap open, which would happen on the sack. And then we turned around, ran the same play, and got about 40-some yards on it. So, but it was good. We didn't have that's the thing is we got this yardage on here, and I don't think we had very many big plays either.
Yeah.
It was just all methodically just marching down the field. I think we had one pass over 40 yards, and we had one run over 50. So it was, I mean, that you want to have big plays offensively, but it's real nice to be able to just like we're taking control and we're just marching the ball down the field and just doing what we want offensively.
And you look at both sides of the ball on offense where you had 175 rushing yards, and as you mentioned, a lot of that came from a lot of different players too. Yeshua Vaught, who is your main running back, had 8 rushes for only 42 yards but got in the end zone twice. Leon Johnson only touched the ball twice but had a 53-yard run that ended up giving him a total of 56 yards when you added on that 3-yard touchdown. And then you had Thomas Darnell, who ran the ball a lot too and even had a rushing touchdown. So you had a balanced attack in the rushing department where not one singular guy did it, and that made it tougher, I think, on Castlewood too, where they didn't know what to expect, and I think that helped you a lot.
Well, in the way they were aligned, they ran a split 4, cover 3 look, and they kept walking out their outside linebackers down. So they had 8 guys over 5. So
Yeah.
It's pretty good when you could run the ball with 5 over 8.
Yes.
And then Darnell just did a good job finding an open guy and just throwing it to him, which is where Brandon Weems was big for us. Made a lot of big plays, catching the ball there because it felt like he had a lot more receptions than 4.
Yeah.
But he took a lot of just 5-yard hitches and got big plays out of it.
And if you look at the averages too, if you're talking about him just catching hitches, we'll talk about his stat line. 4 receptions, 62 yards. If you do the math on that real quick, I think it's 15.5 a reception. If a lot of those are just on little short hitch routes like that, then he's doing a lot of work other than just running the route and getting the ball. He's catching it and having a lot of yards after reception.
That's a big thing with him. He's real good. He's real good about that. And then they kind of took out our outside receivers because they started playing some press to our single receiver side, and we have free access hitches over there, so they took that away, so didn't really get the ball to them, but ran a couple screens to the outside, and and the way we try to make the defense defend 53.5 yards across the field. Sometimes if they take the outside receivers, our 2 inside receivers are going to have a heyday.
Yeah.
Well, if teams start taking away the inside receivers, then our outside guys are going to start having some big games. So it's kind of funny how all that works out. But I think another positive is I think we found a kicker.
He was on here to be discussed later.
Oh, so if you want to wait on that,
Go for it. I love the name.
Juan Soto.
I don't know if you watch baseball a lot.
A little bit, but
Great baseball player, one of my favorites named Juan Soto. When I saw that name, I was like, name sounds familiar. Okay.
Well, he just moved here. I'm having to learn Spanish. So I had to pull up my phone multiple times and put Google Translate on so to get some coaching pointers over, and he looks at me and he gives me the thumbs up, so I know we're good to go. But he wasn't available last week, had to go through heat acclimation and everything. He just moved here maybe a week and a half ago, like 2 weeks ago. So it definitely good to have him back here. He's a soccer player from Venezuela, and he can boot the ball. He had one and kicked it down to the 1-yard line, kicked it over top of the returner's head. So it's he's still figuring it out. We're going to have to teach him a little bit about tackling and contact, but was very pleased with his kickoffs, and that's a real good surprise here. So I know we've been talking about having to do a bunch of 2-point like trick plays and stuff, which the kids love it. They love those different 2-point plays we've come up with, but at the same time having the ability to hopefully here in a few games be able to kick a field goal and kick extra points. But we may still be a few weeks out before that, trying to figure out.
Yeah.
It's a little different kicking a kickoff and a little different having guys rush at you.
I've spoken about that on another show. Kicking a soccer ball and kicking a football, totally different.
Yes.
Totally different. There's a lot of different mechanics that go into it also, but we've mentioned it before in previous years also. Being able to kick in 1A football is huge because a lot of times you see teams line down and go for 2 after they score touchdowns. So being able to have that extra point in your back pocket is huge in 1A.
Well, we're going to keep working at it, and hopefully here in a couple games, because the whole thing with our 2-point plays we talk about is tell them, guys, as long as we convert 60% of the time, we win.
Yeah.
So, like, we're not – see, that if you throw an interception on a 2-point play, it don't count.
Doesn't matter.
You fumble it don't matter. But if you convert every other time, you're on pace with what you would do kicking ball. But if we can get a sure thing on an extra point, that changes the mindset a whole lot. So that definitely a positive. I look forward to seeing how that plays out over the next few weeks, because again, you never know with teenagers, especially ones that have never played football before. So, but we're definitely excited about Juan, and hopefully he's really enjoying it, because it's kind of the first time I talked to him, he's like, I play football, and it's like, no, football Americano. And he's like, no. And it's like, well, our soccer season is during the spring. So it's like, hey, you can play soccer in the spring, but right now I want you to come play football. And then he met some of our football players, and they clicked, and it's kind of been – they've been tight ever since.
He's got a good coach on the sideline to help him in kicks, though.
Coach Bailey. Yeah.
Exactly. That's, I think, the last time you can think of a really automatic kicker that North Greene's had here, one that sticks out. So he's got a great coach behind him that will help him learn how to kick a football and learn the fundamentals and everything. And there's so many stats I have on my phone right now to talk about. I don't know if we've touched them all yet. One that I could see that we haven't talked about, we spoke about him a little bit, Thomas Darnell. He did great on both sides of the ball. Another efficient night. You've seen him grow a lot more. 14 of 18 passing, 167 yards with a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown. We talked about a lot of those going to Brandon, where he did a lot of work with yards after reception. But another main target that seems to be a main target every single week that had an average of a first down every catch was Jake Duffy. 7 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. That's a main connection that we've seen a lot in North Greene games so far through Thomas Darnell and Jake Duffy's time on the field. And it seems like they like connecting again this year with how well they've done so far.
Well, a lot of that is Jake runs really good routes,
yeah,
and he finds ways to get open. And if it's a contested catch, he catches them. So if I go back and look at our production, so we track, Coach Bailey tracks targets versus catches versus like whether you make plays or not, and he tracks that stuff. And I want to say, without having to go back and look at it, he had 7 targets, 7 catches.
That's perfect.
So I don't want to misquote that, but that's kind of what we're looking at for Jake is his. Yep, you're looking at 7 targets, 7 catches.
That's perfect.
So it's a good time when you catch the ball pretty well, and we know sometimes that's not always going to be the case, which is why we try to hammer down on run game and being very efficient in the run. So that's why I was real pleased overall with our stat line of offensively. We're very balanced.
And offensively, we talked about you being balanced within the rushing department and the passing department. Great night offensively and defensively. Want to go ahead and go through the scoring log real quick. Yeshua Vaught started with that 6-yard rushing touchdown that put you up 8-0, and then Thomas Darnell with a 5-yard rushing touchdown that put you up 14-0. Yeshua Vaught had another rushing touchdown that helped you go up 22-0. Then you got a receiving touchdown from Jake Duffy from 6 yards out, helped you go up 30-0 at the half. They scored to bring it 30-6, and then Leon Johnson had that 3-yard rush after a 53-yard rush, and he helped it go up to 36-6. And then Jared Swatzel had a 13-yard rushing touchdown. So 4 different players scored rushing touchdowns on Friday night.
That's what I thought.
I forget about Jordan scoring that last one too.
Yep, he made a great read on that. So the defensive end crashed down, and he just pulled it out, and guys on the outside did a great job of pinning their guys inside, which sprung a big play, which is another thing receiver-wise we grade them on, is if they spring a big block for a touchdown, that's a big play in terms of that. And one thing I need to mention defensively, we were going through our production for defense, and one that really stood out was Braden Weems. He had one of his best nights defensively I think he's had in a North Greene uniform. Okay. He was all over the place. We're watching film, and he's making plays on the backside of the play. He's lined up on the right, plays an outside run to the left, and he's tracking it down, and he's beating our defensive lineman there.
Yeah.
And it's not that our D linemen are slow either. They're doing a good job keeping everything flat. It's just Braden had his hair on fire, flying around everywhere, and he definitely had a great night. And we're looking through. I feel bad for our safeties this past game because they didn't really score very well in production, and then
they didn't really have much to do.
They didn't have much to do.
No.
Our front, and our linebackers were making plays in the backfield before they even had a chance to make plays. So it's like Dash, Brandon, Jake. All those guys had great games. They just didn't score a whole lot of points in production just because the play was already done. And another one, two guys that really stood out defensive line-wise was Weston Barrett had a big night defensively. Got banged up a little bit in week 1, so had a little bit of limited role this week trying to get him back in the fray, and he stood out real well defensively. And then one we're finally getting back is Dylan Gentry. He had a big-time game, multiple tackles for loss, making plays in the backfield. So there's a couple guys who really start to step up the plate and were real physical, doing a great job there. And then, of course, Yeshua holding everything down right in the middle.
Absolutely.
So kind of hard not to say anything about him.
Both offensively and defensively. But like I said, there is a lot that I had to talk about this week, and I think that covers it all. Had a lot of production on offense, 348 total yards, 175 of those coming in the rushing department, and then 167 coming in the passing department. Thomas Darnell, 14 of 18 with a passing touchdown and rushing touchdown. The defense holding Castlewood to only 127 yards. And then, of course, the individual performances from Jake Duffy, Brandon Weems in the receiving department, then Yeshua Vaught, Leon Johnson, and Jordan Swatsel in the rushing department. Jared Swatsel, my bad. Yeah. I apologize. And then you have the new addition of Juan Soto, which will hopefully update week by week now.
Hopefully so. So hopefully that ball gets deeper and deeper into the end zone.
Absolutely.
And we start kicking farther and farther.
Absolutely, but I think that covers all of that. Hopefully we get to come in here next week and we get to talk about a lot of this on offense because you're stepping into a very important game this week. Yep. Not only is it your first region game, games matter, and you're going on the road to Jellico. Very long road trip. It's been a while since you've made that trip. It was your first year as a coach.
21.
Since you made that trip, you'll make it again. Before we cover that, though, we need to go ahead and take a break first before we preview that part of it. So we'll go ahead and be right back in just a minute to talk about that here on Grassroots Media.
Baileyton Drug Company services the surrounding communities of Baileyton with excellent patient care using a full-line pharmacy, over-the-counter selections, and a convenient drive-thru. When you visit us, you are treated as a neighbor, not a number. It's not just our slogan, but our culture. We're investing in our patients, local schools, and community. For over 5 years now, we have established ourselves as an independently family-run pharmacy that isn't driven by corporate goals. We are driven by what is best for your overall health and wellness. We're conveniently located so you don't have to make the drive. Prescription drugs are just the tip of the iceberg. We also offer natural remedies, essential oils, at-home medical needs such as walkers, rollators, bath accessories, as well as wound care products. And coming soon, basic urgent care services. What makes us better than other drugstores out there? When you frequent Baileyton Drug, you will receive professional, courteous, and friendly service that goes above and beyond any other pharmacy in the area. Remember, you're a neighbor, not a number.
For more than 30 years, Tommy's Plumbing has served customers in East Tennessee with licensed and professional plumbing services. From installing your new faucet to replacing your existing piping system, our team at Tommy's Plumbing is trained to handle the job with professionalism, attention to detail, and integrity. By offering warranties on most products installed by our technicians, Tommy's Plumbing stands behind our work, ensuring that your plumbing needs are not only met, but that your problem is solved for the long term. When you need reliable and professional plumbing service, Tommy's is the only call to make. So give us a call today and let us show you the Tommy's difference.
My name is Robert Starnes. I'm a lifelong resident of North Greene County, where I currently reside here with my wife and 3 children. I was a barber in Greenville for the last 6 years, but I have recently changed locations to my new shop in Baileyton. It's at 285 Mortis Hollow Lane, Afton. I'm also a proud supporter of North Greene Athletics. Come see me for all of your men and boys grooming needs. Go Huskies!
Welcome back to Grassroots Media. Welcome back to this week's edition of the Baileyton Drug Company Eric Tilson Show, presented by Starnes Barber, where we cover everything on the Tundra with the North Greene Huskies football team. As always, I'm joined here with head football coach Eric Tilson. So, you make that travel to Jellico this week. The games matter a little bit more now. Got the first 2 weeks out of the way. You're stepping into region play now. What's your mindset going into region play now in week 3?
Well, we want to continuously improve. That's kind of been our main focus. It's about us. It's about how we execute, and if we just continue the progress that we've made, then I feel confident going into this week because games do matter now. They have implications for the end of the year, so it's important to go out and execute now.
And then Jellico is a team that you're very familiar with. You've played them since your first year here as a head coach. Last year had a very closely contested game here at home that ended with a little bit of controversy, you could say, in there. So will you be going into that game this year with that bitter taste in your mouth, wanting to exact revenge against them?
Well, I mean, as a coach, yeah, you kind of thinking about that because you lose sleep over games like that. But as a player, there's no need to because, again, last year's last year, this year's this year. So and we talk about all the time, last year plays don't win this year's games.
Yeah.
So you can't have a revenge type mindset because you got to go out and just go execute what you're supposed to do now because players move on. They've lost players. We've lost players. We've gained players. They've gained players. So it's two completely different teams. So your mindset going in is, all right, how can we improve from week 2 to week 3 now? What can we do well? Because if you go back and look at last year, we're running almost a completely different type of offense now because of who we have, and so you got different look there. They have a different look this year. So it's. Yeah, as a coach, I'm still got that in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of when you're going out and actually going to play the game, you're worried about what is happening right now. Who do we need to who do we need to target at? Who do we need to get away from? Different stuff like that.
And I know things are different from year to year, as you just kind of alluded to. Your team has improved a lot so far throughout the first 2 games compared to last year. And Jellico is a team that I personally don't know as much about. I only see them once a year whenever they do play North Greene. So give me some insight. Do you expect them to kind of improve compared to last year's team?
Well, they had 2 of their best players. I would they had 2 players graduate who were really, really good. Caden Rose and Trey Jefferson. 2-headed spear in the backfield, and they were all over the place on defense, and that's really hard to replace. But the one thing that they've continued even the last couple of years is they are very stingy on defense.
Okay.
Last year they scored twice on defense against us, and they held us to 1 touchdown last year. And they haven't given up a whole lot of points this year either. Even they had a real tight game against Lynn Camp out of Kentucky. It was 20-14, and actually had a chance to win it with 8 seconds left on the 1-yard line.
Wow.
Fumbled it. Actually fumbled it on 2nd down, tried to reach the ball out, and the ball got knocked out.
Fumbled again.
And the ball got knocked out, and Lynn Camp got the ball. And if they would have just kind of held it, they had enough time to run another play. So they've been in tight contests there, and they played Oakdale last week, and that was another tight ball game. I believe it was 12-8. So haven't given up a whole lot of points this year. So they're stingy on defense. They're still trying to figure themselves out offensively. They were very power run heavy last year. Tight double tights, 3 backs, hand the ball off to their two main runners, where they still have some of that identity this year, but they are throwing the ball a little bit more. They got a kid, number 6, Bryson Ballard, who he's a 6'3" kid, 170. He's an older guy. He flies around to try to get him the ball in space, make some plays. He made a big play down near the red zone on a fake screen. He's out open field making catches. He can go over top of people. So he's somebody you got to watch out for. Their quarterback can run really well. When they were down late in the game against Lynn Camp, they had about 4 minutes left, and they started balling the 20. and marched it all the way down the field.
Wow.
A lot of it had to do with the quarterback being able to run on draw. So he can make plays with his legs. He throws the ball pretty well, so he can get the ball to his playmakers out there. And then I would probably say their best player is a senior, 22, Samuel Prophet, which we've seen for the last 3 years. His name's been mentioned quite a bit. He's all over the place on defense. He's a good ball player, and he was out last week. Of course, he's a minor. I can't really mention what for, but he was out last week. I expect him to be back this week. So he's a very good ball player. He kind of fit. So I'm sure they missed him last week in their game against Oakdale. So their team is 0-2 right now, but could very easily be 2-0 at this point. You just take a couple plays away. They go down. This kid's back last week. They might change the outcome of that game if they don't fumble the ball on the. You're talking about two plays. So again, that's just kind of the way football goes sometimes. They're going to be excited to play at home next week. They got a new turf field. So
is it their first home opener this year?
No, they played Link Camp at home, so they played on the turf already. So that novelty is worn off. But it is nice to play on turf because I know it's going to be a flat field.
Yeah.
And so it's. But it's exciting, and we've practiced and played
quite a bit
on. We scrimmaged Sullivan East on turf. Went to Carson Newman on turf, and we've been to multiple places, so kind of got some experience playing on it. So, but they have very good ball team. So they are young up front, but they are very good in the skill department. So
defense. What are some of the formations you expect them to come out in?
Well, they played 2 double tight sets. One was like a wing T set, and then the other team ran like the triple I. So they had like 3 backs lined up in an I in the center. So they're running different looks against that. But we've seen them walk. They're based out of a 3-4. Then they'll walk some linebackers down to get to a 4 front versus some power sets. And then they'll play cover 3 behind it. And then teams that have spread the ball out, even if for a couple plays and went to a two safety look and played quarters and 2 read, then they'd bring a linebacker from somewhere. They'd be 3 down, but they'd bring one of their outside linebackers primarily.
So they seem like a fascinating team.
Yes, they are very fascinating.
That is what I'm getting from this, because they seem like a fascinating team who can do a lot of different things and throw a lot of different things at you. Because usually, I've mentioned it already this year, that a lot of teams don't open their playbooks up this early into the season. Seem like they kind of maybe have and shown you a lot of different things that they might use, but at the end of the day, you don't really know what to expect them to use.
Well, a lot of it is we go back, it's the same coaching staff, and so kind of what happens there is early in the year, you kind of see how did they defend you last year, because a lot of times they'll come back to the same type of ideas. And then you go back, look offensively, how are they going to attack our defense, because again, it's the same coaches, they kind of got the same ideas. So there'll be some variations based on who they have. So last year's game is important in terms of game planning wise, to kind of see. In terms of this year, it's important to see who is on the field and who are you actually playing against. But overall structure wise, like for example, our defensive structure hasn't changed, but there's different players in different roles. So and we got some variations, change some things of how we do stuff. So that's the fun part of coaching, is kind of that chess match. And that's kind of what we enjoy, being able to go watch. I mean, that was a good thing about Labor Day, is you got all weekend to watch film, and I had the iPad out just watching it. My wife's looking at me like, what are you doing?
I was going to mention that. It seems like you've done a lot of homework for this team, because this is the most you've talked about so far in a preview segment so far this year.
Well, you
for the first region game,
it's pretty
with an extended weekend, I completely understand it.
Well, part of it is I've actually got 2 films. Castlewood, we didn't have much of anything, and of course, first game of the year, you don't have anything but scrimmage. So it's kind of the first time I'm actually be like, all right, I can dive into some film now. I actually got some real film, because that's the thing in scrimmages, like, no, you're not showing anything in scrimmage. So it was actually fun to actually watch some game film, and because first time I'll watch it through straight, like I'm watching the game to kind of get a feel for the flow of the game, and then that's where, like, you see that last drive, you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, oh man, this is a big drive right
Yeah.
here. This is go down to winning a ball game. So you kind of feel it. Then you feel that heartbreak watching it when they fumble it on the 1 yard line. Like, man, that hurts. So it's like, even though you're playing that team, it's like, and I say this all the time, it's like all the coaches know each other.
Yeah.
So we're all buddies. We all help each other out, especially when we're not playing each other. But so it's like you kind of feel some empathy towards, like, man, that hurts because you've been there before.
Yeah.
But that's the fun part about watching it. Then I go back through and I watch it by formation, and then I'll watch it by situation. So like open field, we consider 20 to 20, first and second down. Then you have a third down playlist. You got a red zone playlist, and you go back look at fourth down because you want to see, like, where do they start going for it on fourth down?
Yeah.
Like what part of the field. And then you kind of see, okay, what about their specials? And then you got big plays, and then you group all the big plays together. What are they doing to get their big plays? So that's how I watch so much film, is because you watch it multiple times in different settings.
Okay, I've never had that conversation on an interview before about how a coach breaks down film, so that's fascinating and insightful.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's what most coaches do. They group it in a playlist. They're called cut ups because you cut up the plays into different. Like you got one for all their top formations. You got one of just their top formations, and then you kind of see, oh, here's a change. This is the running back's at 7 yards instead of 5 yards. What are they doing when he's at 7? Because that's an indicator.
Yeah.
So back alignment's a big one for defense, and then I noticed one with a linebacker stance. Like I noticed he changes what he does based on his where his feet are in his stance.
Okay.
So like you start noticing stuff like that. It was like when I was like, okay, this pressure, what is he always doing with this pressure? So that's the fun part about coaching, when you pick up something like that. And sometimes that stuff wins you games.
That's what we talked about the first interview that we did this year. There are 100 hours that go into coaching
Yes,
in a week, and you just see the 3 hours that you play on the field on Friday nights. But that's a lot of the hours that go into it, is watching film, breaking down stuff like that. But as always, heading into Friday night, you've got Jellico, the first Region 1-1A game of the year, most important game of the year to this date. What are your 3 keys to the game?
Oh, you already know it. Great effort.
Great tackling.
Playmakers got to make plays.
Absolutely. All 3 are always the same, Coach. That's all I've got for you this week. Once again, I appreciate you sitting down and talking to me. It's good to be back at the round table. We didn't mention it at the beginning this week, but as always, love the round table discussions.
Oh, yeah. Definitely a good conversation.
We'll have to do one on the Tundra one day when it gets a little colder, when it starts to feel
it actually feels
more
like
the Tundra. Yeah, right now
you'd be melted.
Yeah, right now it feels like the desert.
Right now we got global warming out here.
Yeah, we do. You can see the heat rising up off the Tundra. Doesn't fit the name right now, so we'll wait.
Yeah, we'll wait a little bit.
We'll stick at the round table for a few more weeks, but until next week when we're back at the round table, thank you all for watching this week's edition of the Baileyton Drug Company Eric Tilson Show, presented by Starnes Barber. We look forward to seeing you next time here on Grassroots Media.